I thought the worst part of buying a house would be the mortgage. I was wrong. It was the letters. When my wife and I moved into our first home in late 2018, it felt like a miracle. The place was old, built in the 1950s, but solid. Quiet neighborhood, decent price. The kind of home that felt like it had stories, but nothing sinister, just history. The problem started during renovations. We decided to repaint the living room. The wallpaper was yellowed and peeling at the corners. One Saturday afternoon, while scraping it off near an outlet, my scraper hit something that didn't sound like plaster. It sounded hollow. Curious, I cut a small square into the drywall. Inside the wall cavity was a folded envelope. It was brittle, yellow with age, and sealed with tape that had long since dried out. My first thought was that it was some old bill or receipt, something boring. It wasn't. The envelope had my full name written on it. Not just my last name, my full name. First, middle, last. I stood there staring at it for a long time. We had only lived there for 3 weeks. No one outside of close family even knew our exact address yet. I opened it. The letter inside was handwritten in shaky blue ink. It said, "You shouldn't have come here. He watches new families. Don't stay long." That was it. No signature, no date. I remember laughing nervously and calling my wife over. We both tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a prank by the previous owners. Maybe they left it there as some twisted joke, knowing someone would eventually renovate. Still, something about seeing my name on paper, hidden inside a wall that had been sealed for years, made my stomach feel heavy. We tried to forget it. But a week later, we found another one. This time, it was behind a loose baseboard in the hallway. Again, my name written on the outside. The handwriting was identical. The message was longer. "He doesn't like noise. The last ones were too loud. You'll hear him before you see him." By then, the house didn't feel charming anymore. I contacted the previous owners. They were an older couple who had moved to Florida. They sounded genuinely confused. They claimed they had never renovated the hallway walls or baseboards. As far as they knew, everything had been the same since they bought the place in the early 2000s, which meant the letters were older than them. I tried to track down property records. The house had changed hands several times over decades. Nothing unusual on paper, no recorded deaths, no crimes listed at the address. But small things started happening. At night, usually around 2 or 3 a.m., I'd hear faint tapping from inside the walls. Not the random ticking of pipes, not the scurrying of mice. This sounded deliberate. 3 taps, a pause, then 2, like someone knocking from the other side. One night, I tapped back. The response came instantly. 3 taps, a pause, then 2. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. We eventually opened more sections of the wall, hoping to find an explanation. Maybe more letters would give us context. We found 6 in total, all addressed to me, each warning us to leave. The final letter was the worst. "If you're reading this, he knows your name now." That same week, something changed. I came home from work and found muddy footprints in the hallway, bare footprints, leading from the kitchen to the wall where we had found the first letter. We had no pets, no kids, and both of us had been out all day. The police came. They checked the doors and windows, no signs of forced entry. They suggested maybe we had tracked the mud in ourselves and forgotten. But the prints were too small to be mine, too large to be my wife's. That night, I heard something different. Not tapping, breathing, faint, slow, right behind the headboard of our bed. I pressed my ear to the wall. The breathing stopped. Then softly, 3 taps, a pause, then 2. We moved out within a month. We never discovered who wrote the letters or how they knew my name. We never met the original builder. We never found records of any hidden spaces inside the walls. But a year later, I received a forwarded piece of mail from our old address. It was a plain envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It read, "You stayed longer than the others." I burned it. To this day, I don't know who he was or if he was ever human. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still hear it. 3 taps. A pause. Then 2. The first time I heard the footsteps, I told myself it was just the house settling. By the third night, I knew someone was under me. We had moved into a small 2-story house with a narrow crawl space instead of a basement. The entrance was a square hatch in the hallway closet floor. Normal. Then, late one night, while lying in bed, I heard it. A soft shuffle directly beneath the floorboards. Not scratching, not scurrying. Footsteps. Slow, careful, measured. I froze. My wife slept beside me, oblivious. The sound moved from one side of the bedroom to the other. Then it stopped directly beneath the bed. I held my breath. After a few seconds, there were 3 quiet knocks against the underside of the floor. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I opened the crawlspace hatch. The smell of damp earth hit me immediately. I shined a flashlight down there. Nothing. Just dirt, pipes, and concrete supports. I told myself it was an animal, until the second incident. This time it was early evening. I was alone. My wife was visiting her sister. I was in the kitchen when I heard something drop beneath the floor, like a tool hitting dirt. Then footsteps, moving from the kitchen toward the living room, following me. I stood perfectly still. The footsteps stopped. Then came the sound of breathing, not above me, below. I grabbed the largest knife I could find and pulled open the crawlspace hatch. "Hello?" I shouted. Silence. I climbed halfway down the ladder, shining the flashlight around. That's when I saw it. An indentation in the dirt, the clear shape of a body having lain there recently, and next to it, an empty plastic water bottle. I called the police immediately. They searched the crawlspace thoroughly. They found food wrappers, more water bottles, even an old blanket tucked between supports. Someone had been living under our house, watching us. The officer explained it calmly. Sometimes homeless individuals find access points and stay in crawl spaces or attics. It happens more often than people realize. They sealed the hatch, added locks, patched a vent outside that had been loosened. I tried to feel relieved, but the footsteps continued, even after the police assured us no one was inside. Now they were slower, heavier. One night, after weeks of silence, I woke to the sound of the hatch creaking open from downstairs. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 while stepping into the hallway. The closet door was open. The hatch was closed, but dirt trailed across the hallway floor, leading toward our bedroom. That was the night we left. We never went back for the rest of our belongings. We let the realtor handle it. The new owners never reported anything unusual, at least not to us. But sometimes, when I lie in bed in our new apartment, I swear I feel a vibration beneath the mattress, as if someone is shifting their weight directly below me. I didn't believe in ghosts, but I did start to believe in ownership. When we bought the house, it came fully furnished. That should have been my first warning. The realtor said the previous owner, an elderly man named Mr. Halberg, had no surviving family. He passed away in the home from natural causes. The estate sold everything as is. Furniture, dishes, even the framed photos on the walls. It felt strange living among someone else's memories, but financially it helped. We couldn't afford new furniture anyway. The first few weeks were uneventful, until I started noticing that things weren't staying where we put them. A chair that faced the television would be angled slightly toward the hallway by morning. A lamp I turned off would be on when I came home from work. At first, I blamed myself. Stress, fatigue, new house paranoia. Then the bedroom door started closing on its own. Not slamming, not dramatic, just slowly, deliberately shutting. One evening, I decided to test something. Before bed, I moved the armchair in the living room to face the wall, completely away from the hallway. I told myself, if it moves again, I'll know. At 3:12 a.m., I woke up. There was no sound, no crash, just a feeling. I walked into the living room. The chair was facing the hallway, perfectly centered, and the hallway light was on. I never turned that light on. The temperature in the house began to drop after that. Not everywhere, just the end of the hallway, near what had once been Mr. Hallberg's bedroom. One night, while brushing my teeth, I saw movement behind me in the bathroom mirror. A shadow crossing the hallway. I spun around. Nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, I saw him. Not clearly, not like a person standing there, more like an outline, a darker shape against darkness. Tall, thin, watching from the doorway. I blinked, and it was gone. I slept with the bedroom door locked after that, but locks didn't seem to matter. I would wake to the faint indentation of someone sitting on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping slightly near my feet. I was too afraid to move, too afraid to confirm it. One afternoon, while cleaning out a dresser drawer in what used to be his room, I found a small notebook tucked beneath the lining. Inside were daily entries. The last few pages were different. They're trying to make me leave, but this is my house. I built it. No one stays long. The final entry was dated the day before his recorded death. I don't think my heart will last the week, but that doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. After reading that, I began to notice something else. Every photograph in the house, every single one, had been turned slightly toward the hallway, even frames I had never touched. One night, I woke to the sound of breathing beside me. Not in the walls, not down the hallway, right next to me. A whisper followed. "You're in my room." I didn't scream. I couldn't. I lay there frozen until morning light crept in through the curtains. By noon, I had contacted a realtor. We sold the house 3 months later. At the closing meeting, the new owners joked about loving homes with character. I almost warned them. But what would I say? That the previous owner never left? Sometimes I still dream of that hallway, and in every dream, the chair is facing me. The day I realized someone was living in my attic was the day I stopped feeling safe in my own skin. It started with food going missing. I lived alone in Fukuoka, Japan, in a small house I had inherited. I kept things tidy, organized, so when snacks began disappearing from my kitchen cabinets, I assumed I was simply forgetting. But then, entire meals vanished. Bowls left soaking in the sink would be cleaned and placed back, not perfectly, just slightly different from how I arranged them. I installed a small security camera in my kitchen in 2008. It was meant to reassure me. Instead, it changed everything. The footage showed nothing unusual during the day, but around 1 a.m., the camera detected movement. A woman, thin, barefoot, with long, dark hair. She climbed down from the top cabinet above my refrigerator, a space I didn't even realize connected to the attic. She moved quietly through the kitchen, opened the fridge, ate small portions of food, drank from the tap, then climbed back up into the cabinet and disappeared. I watched the footage 3 times before calling the police. They searched the house thoroughly. When they opened the attic crawl space, they found her. She had been living there for nearly a year. There was a mattress, bottled water, stolen food wrappers. She had rigged a small space between insulation panels where she could lie flat and remain silent while I walked beneath her. The police later said she was homeless and had entered through an unlocked window months earlier. She had observed my schedule carefully and only came down when I was asleep or away. What unsettled me most wasn't the theft. It was the realization that she had watched me from above every night. There were evenings when I had paced the house in frustration, mornings when I had sung absent-mindedly in the kitchen, nights when I had cried quietly at the table. She had been there, listening. The officers removed her peacefully. I never saw her face clearly in person, but for months afterward, I couldn't sleep. Every creak above me sounded deliberate. Every shifting shadow felt like movement. Even after I sealed every entry point, even after I installed alarms, the knowledge lingered. Someone had lived in my house without me knowing. And if not for that camera, I might have never discovered her at all. The basement door wasn't there when we moved in. I'm certain of that. The house was small, built in the 1970s, with a simple layout: kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms, and a finished basement with a storage area. I had walked every inch of that basement before signing the paperwork. There was one door down there, only one. 3 months later, I went downstairs to grab a toolbox, and there were 2. The second door stood at the far end of the storage wall. Same paint color as the walls, same trim. It blended in so well I might have missed it if I hadn't memorized the layout already. I stared at it for a long time. I even checked old listing photos on my phone. In the photos, the wall was flat, no door. I called my wife down. She swore it hadn't been there before either. We tried to rationalize it. Maybe it had been concealed behind shelving, maybe we overlooked it. But the shelves had always been against the opposite wall. The handle was cold when I touched it. Locked. There was no visible keyhole. That night, I dreamed of someone knocking from the other side. 3 slow knocks. The next morning, the door was slightly ajar, just a crack. I felt a draft coming from inside. Cold, damp air. We argued for hours about whether to open it fully. Eventually, curiosity won. The space beyond wasn't large, just a narrow concrete corridor descending slightly downward. It shouldn't have existed. There was no room in the foundation plans for this extension. The corridor ended in a small, unfinished chamber, empty, except for a single wooden chair facing the wall. The wall was scratched, long, vertical gouges, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. I felt an overwhelming sense that we were not supposed to find this place. We sealed the door shut with plywood that same day. 2 nights later, I woke up to a sound from the basement. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. When I checked in the morning, the plywood was splintered inward, and the door? The door was gone. The wall was flat again, as if it had never existed. We moved out within the month. The new owners never mentioned a basement door. But sometimes I wonder if they've started hearing it too. 3 knocks from behind a wall that isn't there.